Chapter 12 Milady's Murderous Deeds. As Planchet entered the gates of Paris 2 days later, Milady's carriage drew up to the gates of Buckingham's mansion. The Duke himself came out to greet her.
"I am here, my lord, as the messenger of Cardinal Richelieu," she said.
"Well, well, so the cardinal's spy has returned," said Buckingham. "I regret that I have no more diamond studs for you to steal."
"I'm here to warn you that if you send ships and supplies to La Rochelle, his Eminence will ruin her Majesty."
"You may inform his Eminence that I shall not be persuaded either by his threats or by his spy's beauty. My ships shall leave for La Rochelle, as planned."
"You will regret those words, my Lord Buckingham,"
cried Milady, as she pulled a small revolver out of her purse. In an instant 4 guards grabbed her and pinned her arms behind her back.
"I shall tell his Eminence that you will not change your mind," she said.
"You shall tell his Eminence nothing," cried the Duke. "I'm having you locked up in the Tower of London, which is as nice a place as his Bastille."
"You wouldn't dare!"
she cried. "No." "Lieutenant Felton, come forward," he called. A young officer stepped forward and bowed to the Duke. "Look at this woman, John," said Buckingham. "She is young and beautiful, but she is a monster. I am placing her in your care at the Tower because I know of your loyalty to me. I have saved your life on the field of battle and promoted you up through the ranks in my service. I have treated you as I would my own son. This woman has come to England to kill me, so be on your guard. She might try to kill you too." "My lord," said Felton, "your wishes shall be obeyed on my honour and on my life." John Felton could not have known at that moment how Milady could use a man's honour or his life for her own purposes, and her purposes now were freedom and revenge. She was determined to use the young jailer for both. She spent the first day and night in her cell on her knees in prayer, bursting into deep sobs when she heard Felton's footsteps approach. He was beginning to respect her as a religious person like he was. Then for days she refused all food, begging her jailer to let her die, or better still, to give her a knife to end her life more quickly. He was beginning to pity her. At last, when she was convinced that Felton's respect and pity had turned to love, she threw herself at his feet, crying,
"Help me! Deliver me from my enemy!"
"Who is your enemy?" he asked, gently lifting her to her feet and holding her.
"The man who stole me away from my family when I was a pure young girl. The man who shamed me. The man you serve so loyally," she lied, with tears running down her face.
"Oh, Milady, surely you cannot mean the Duke of Buckingham!" cried Felton.
"It is he! It is he! Please let me die of this shame!" she sobbed,
throwing her arms around the young man's neck. "No, no," he said, "you shall not die. You shall live to have your revenge, and I shall help. Trust me, please, for I love you. I must leave now so that I can arrange for your escape, my dear lady." As the door to the cell closed behind Felton, Milady smiled. Felton was hers. When he returned 2 hours later, he led her quietly down the stone steps behind the prison. A small boat was tied up in the river below. They climbed in, and Felton picked up the oars, pointing to a large sloop anchored near the mouth of the river. "I have hired that sloop to carry you back to France," he said. "You will be safe."
"But what about Buckingham?" she cried. "Do not let his evil deeds go unpunished."
"Buckingham is preparing to set sail for La Rochelle," said Felton.
"He must not leave England!" she cried.
"Do not fear, my angel," whispered Felton, kissing her hand. "He shall not leave." Milady smiled a victorious smile. She gazed into the face of the young man seated next to her. The death of the Duke of Buckingham was written all over that face. Felton helped Milady aboard the sloop. He would return to shore, but he promised to be back on board by 10 o'clock to make the voyage to France with her. He had 3 hours to avenge this beautiful woman who had sworn her love to him. He headed towards the port, making his way through the troops marching towards the ships and through the crowds gathered to see them off. He felt for the knife hidden inside his jacket. At that moment he was jostled by a rather plump young man dressed in the clothing of a French lackey. "Pardon, monsieur," said the man in French, but Felton didn't bother answering Planchet's apologies. He just clutched his knife a little more tightly. Both men seemed to be rushing through the crowds in the direction of the Duke's ship. Felton could see Buckingham ahead, proudly displaying his fleet to the ministers of King Charles. Planchet saw him too, and began to run. Suddenly Felton burst through the line of noblemen. He leapt on the Duke, and plunged the knife into his heart, crying, "Milady has been avenged!" As the guards surrounded Felton and pinned him to the ground, Planchet stopped and stared in horror. He was a moment too late. The Duke of Buckingham was dead. Murdered! The crowd was in an uproar as Felton was dragged away. A nearby clock struck 8, and Felton turned his gaze to the harbor. The sail of a sloop could be seen steering for the coast of France. The woman for whom he was sacrificing his life had not waited.